Hello, and welcome to NATROX Wound Solutions Module 1, the Physiology of Wound Healing. Our objectives for this module are to detail skin physiology, understand the function of the skin, review the cellular components involved in wound healing, and identify the stages of wound healing. First, let's discuss the skin anatomy. The skin is the largest organ of the body. It is not a docile organ. It performs many functions such as protection, thermoregulation, water retention, and also helps to synthesize vitamin D. The skin is composed of three layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis, or the subcutaneous tissue layer. In the epidermis, this is the outermost layer of the skin. It does not have its own blood supply. Keratinocytes make up about 90% of the cells in this layer of skin, and it also helps to keep the skin elastic and protect the underlying cells. Complete epidermal renewal occurs every 45 to 75 days. The next layer of the skin is the dermis. The dermis is made up of elastin and collagen primarily. It provides the strength, support, and also contributes to elasticity of the skin. This layer is rich in blood supply and nervous tissue. Cells in this layer are neutrophils, and those are the inflammatory cells for phagocytosis, and also are very important for fibroblast recruitment and activation. We'll talk a lot about the role of fibroblasts throughout the modules. The dermis also contains macrophages. Those are also phagocytotic cells that help to regulate proteases. They release growth factors to help to promote tissue repair and regeneration, including angiogenesis. The innermost layer of the skin is the hypodermis, or the subcutaneous tissue layer. And this is the layer where fat storage and formation occurs. This layer also helps to insulate or support the skin, and it acts as the nutrition store for the tissues. The skin has its own unique microbiome. The skin naturally contains many microorganisms, primarily Staph aureus, Staph epidermidis, and some form of streptococcus. The skin tends to be acidic in pH, and this actually helps to keep organisms from becoming pathologic. When the skin is basic, we see that microorganisms, especially pathologic microorganisms, can replicate, and wound infection becomes more likely. So we like to keep the skin at an acidic pH, usually between 4.5 and 5.5. And this goes also for our wound tissue as well. Changes in the skin occur as we become older, and we see in elderly populations a decrease in dermal thickness. We also see a decrease in the fatty layer or subcutaneous tissue layer of the skin. We see a decrease in collagen and elastin, so we don't have that elasticity and that bounce back to the skin as we get older. Skin metabolism decreases as we get older as well. So does the circulation. And that's why elderly patients tend to have more issues with skin injury and can suffer from skin tears with just minimal insults to the skin, unfortunately. Let's talk about the epidermis. As we said, the epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin. It is the thinnest layer of the skin. Its primary function is to provide protection from the outside world to the body. The epidermis does not contain any blood supply or blood vessels, as we mentioned. It's dependent on the dermis to provide access to nutrients, to blood supply, and then also to dispose of any waste products that occur within the epidermis. The main functions of the dermis are to produce new skin cells via keratinocytes. That's why keratinocytes are so plentiful in the epidermis. Also, the epidermis acts as a protective layer in production of melanin. It gives skin our color, but also protects the body from UV radiation. It acts as that physical barrier to the body, again, to the outside world, but even maybe more importantly, to bacteria and other contaminants from the outside world. So it plays a crucial role in the immune functions of the body. Some of those cells that we find in the epidermal tissue are keratinocytes, as we mentioned. And if you recall from biology, keratinocytes produce keratin or also lay down new epidermal tissue. These cells are produced in the deeper layers, and then as they mature, they migrate to the surface where they are sloughed off, a process that can take 30 days to mature. And again, renewal of skin occurs every 45 to 75 days. Melanocytes, we mentioned, are also found in the epidermal tissue layer. These cells produce the melanin granules that provides color to our skin and protect us from UV radiation. Langerhans cells are found in the epidermal skin layer. And these are very important cells for the immune response. They're basically the cells that trigger if inflammation should occur, if there are any pathologic types of contaminants that come into the skin, or if there's something that's commensal, maybe the immune response is tolerant, so we don't have to mount that immune response. And those are the cells responsible for making those decisions. And then Merkel cells are the tactile cells that are located on the base of the epidermis. They're connected to the nerve endings, and they are responsible for our sense of touch. The epidermal and dermal junction actually plays a very important role. This is the basement membrane that's located between the layers of the epidermis and the dermis. It contains reedy ridges, and they sort of fit together like puzzle pieces. This epidermal dermal junction allows for the oxygen and nutrients to cross from the dermis into the epidermis. And then unfortunately, what we see over time is these reedy ridges will flatten with age. And that's what contributes to the fact that older adults tend to be more susceptible to skin tears. This area is also where fluid can become trapped when there's friction or pressure. And this is how blisters will develop. The dermis is actually the thickest layer of the skin. It's made up of fibrous and elastic tissue, and it really allows for that strength and flexibility of the skin tissue. This is where we find the extracellular matrix, or the ECM, which you'll hear me refer to throughout many of these modules. It's primarily composed of collagen and type 1 collagen, elastic fibers, and ground substances such as glycosaminoglycans and proteoglycans. And these substances are what give the dermis that structure and allows for cells to migrate into the area and latch on and to reproduce and lay down additional collagen to help to support tissue repair and regeneration. In the dermis, we also have a reservoir for growth factors, which we'll talk about the importance of growth factors as signaling molecules to again support the healing cascade. In the dermis, we also find many capillaries that feed the dermis and the epidermis. We'll find our hair follicles and our erector pili muscles. This is what actually will produce goosebumps. Eccrine glands or sweat glands that allow for fluid release and helps our body regulate temperature. We see sebaceous glands, which produce sebum for lubrication of the skin. There's the epicrine glands that produce scent, nerve endings for heat, pain, cold, itching, pressure, or vibration. And then we also have the lymphatic glands, which are very important to help to remove microbes, any increase in interstitial fluid, and help to provide for lymphatic drainage. Some of the important cells that we find in the dermis include fibroblasts, and this is the primary cell type that we see in the dermis. And fibroblasts are the worker bees of tissue repair and regeneration because they produce pro-collagen and elastic fibers and help to lay down new collagen to really precipitate tissue repair and regeneration. Mast cells are also found in the dermal layer, and these cells contain granules with histamine and other chemicals which are released if this cell is disturbed or damaged, which helps to mount that inflammatory response. And then we see a lot of vascular smooth muscle cells, and these cells are really important for contracture or dilation of blood vessels to maintain homeostasis of body temperature, but also they can react if any other stimuli or stresses such as tissue injury occur. So the innermost layer of the skin, as you will recall, is the hypodermis, or the subcutaneous tissue layer. And it really performs many functions such as insulation for protection of the body. It stores energy in the form of fat. It helps to regulate body temperature and will connect the skin to the deeper tissues such as muscle and bone. Hypodermis has many cells. Fibroblasts you'll find also in the hypodermis. We talked about these are the cells that produce collagen. That is the primary building block of skin, muscle, bones, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, hair. Adipose tissue or fat, again, helps to protect the body. It's found around organs, in the breasts, and between muscles. We see connective tissue, fibrous tissue made of collagen and elastin that helps to protect and give structure to the other tissues of the body. The hypodermis has plentiful blood supply, so we see a lot of arterioles and capillaries and veins that help to deliver blood and oxygen to the vital organs, and also produce waste products and remove waste products. Lymphatic vessels are also plentiful in this region to help regulate fluid levels and hopefully help to prevent edema or excess fluid accumulation. Hair follicles are present within the hypodermis, as are sweat glands, and then nerve endings that help for sensory registration of pain, temperature, pressure, and proprioception. So let's talk about other components that are important in wound healing. So cytokines are also found in the skin, and they are small polypeptides that influence chemotaxis, proliferation, and tissue cell differentiation. And cytokines act as a major signaling molecule for the immune system, and they are plentiful in the skin tissue. Growth factors are also very important in the healing cascade. These are proteins that are released by the cells. And again, these stimulate chemotaxis, mitosis, angiogenesis, and apoptosis. So these are really the beaking or homing mechanisms. After tissue is damaged, growth factors are released by cells so that the important cellular tissue migrates into the area, replicates, and helps to lay down new tissue. And these are really the primary mediators for cellular function for wound healing. You'll hear throughout these modules me refer to the extracellular matrix, or ECM, and the extracellular matrix becomes disorganized in chronic wounds, and it's important to reestablish the extracellular matrix in order for wounds to heal. The extracellular matrix is composed of collagen, and again, this is the most abundant protein in the body. It provides tissue structure and strength. Those glycosaminoglycans that we talked about provide bulk and help to maintain hydration of the skin. Proteoglycans provide that protein anchoring so that cells can kind of latch on and replicate and produce the functions to support wound healing. Proteoglycans also regulate collagen formation. Fibronectin is an important component of the ECM. And again, this helps to create that scaffold. So during hemostasis, it also helps to bind and store growth factors. Matrix metalloproteases, or also MMPs, or sometimes we refer to them simply as proteases, are also important for healing. Initially, in acute wounds, proteases break down divided lace tissue, spent cellular debris. So their main role is as degrading enzymes for proteins. These are synthesized and secreted by cells. Again, in acute wounds, they maintain a steady level that is non-pathologic, but unfortunately in chronic wounds, we'll see protease levels rise and we'll start to break down good tissue or good extracellular matrix. And this excessive expression of MMPs will lead to prolonged inflammation, degradation of the extracellular matrix, and contribute to delayed wound healing. So let's dive into the phases of wound healing. So there are 4 phases of wound healing. Wound healing is a complex and dynamic process, and these are overlapping stages that need to occur in order to support wound healing and allow for epithelialization. When tissues are injured, this kind of kicks off these overlapping series of events that are often referred to as the healing cascade. And again, we divide them into 4 distinct individual stages. The first stage or phase of wound healing is hemostasis, and we can refer to this as the stop the leak phase. And this typically occurs within 24 hours of injury. And again, the goal is to stop the bleeding. The wound is normally closed via clotting, and we'll see initially the process is bleeding, then we see vasoconstriction, formation of a platelet plug, and then fibrin mesh is deposited into the area and takes the place of the platelet plug, and then this thrombus or clot forms. So again, phase 1, hemostasis, is the stop the leak phase. Phase 2 is the inflammation phase, and this is when we call in the cleanup committee. So the focus of phase 2, or the inflammation phase, is to clean the wound after injury. This is when neutrophils enter the tissue and they help to destroy bacteria and remove wound contaminants. Usually the peak number of neutrophils occurs around 24 to 48 hours after injury and should start to recede in 3 days. Again, this is in normal wound healing. What we see in chronic wounds that the reduction in neutrophils doesn't really occur in a timely fashion. Typically, what we'd like to see is as neutrophil counts decrease, macrophage counts will increase, and these macrophages will come into the area, continue phagocytosis and cleaning up of cellular debris. Macrophages will then also secrete those growth factors, those signaling molecules that we talked about, to attract other cells to facilitate tissue repair. Typically, the other cells they call in then are the fibroblasts. So normal wound healing in this stage lasts maybe up to 4 to 6 days. But remember, in chronic wounds, they typically stall within the inflammatory phase. So we don't see that calling in of the fibroblasts in order to produce collagen, and there remains this cycle of inflammation, and we kind of get stuck in phase 2. We also see in this phase edema, or tissue swelling, and increased local tissue temperatures and pain. Phase 3 of the healing cascade is the proliferative phase, and this is sort of the must rebuild stage. So at this point in time, the neutrophils and the macrophages have reduced debris, and hopefully devitalized tissue is nearly absent. The focus of this phase of wound healing is to fill and cover the wound tissue, filling with granulation tissue by way of angiogenesis, and contracting of the wound occurs with synthesis of collagen by the fibroblasts and also myofibroblasts. And about 50 to 70% of wound closure occurs by contraction in the proliferative phase. Covering of the wound also will occur within the proliferative phase. So we see that keratinocytes will migrate into the wound from the margins of the wound and from the hair follicles. Epithelialization will occur. This is aided by a moist wound environment, and it is actually inhibited by scab formation. So when we talk about dressing selection, this will be very important. Migration occurs around nice, good, healthy granulation tissue only. Keratinocytes are kind of finicky. They don't like to go across fibrotic tissue, necrotic tissue. They don't like to go down valleys or up mountains. So having a nice flat skin surface, a nice healthy granulation tissue wound base will facilitate keratinocyte migration and epithelialization or wound closure. Phase 4 of the wound healing cascade is the remodeling phase. So this is the reinforce phase, if you will. And this is also referred to as the maturation phase. And this is where immature collagen matures, scar tissue forms. Hopefully, if we have good levels of scar tissue, 80% of the tensile strength of the uninjured skin will be reestablished. We'll never get to that 100% of that strength of the skin after injury. Normal blood flow is reestablished, and believe it or not, this process can take up to 2 years. So in summary, the skin is not a passive organ. It has many cells that reside in the layers of the skin, and these are very active cells, and this is a very active organ. Understanding skin anatomy is the first step and really an essential step in optimizing wound healing and performing wound management. Wound healing includes both the restoration and covering and function of the skin, which is very important. And as you can tell, wound healing is a complex process that consists of many overlapping cellular events that must take place in an organized fashion, or else wound healing is stopped or stalled and chronic wounds form. Here are some additional references for your review. And this concludes Module 1. To complete the test, Please click on the red test icon at the bottom of your screen with the clipboard and pencil attached to receive your certificate of completion for this module. Thank you.